Welcome to the Car Guys, and this week I am here at 4-Star Classics, a very special purveyor of fine automobiles across my favourite decades, the 70s, the 80s, and of course the 90s. If you can't find something that stirs your nostalgia glands and ultimately your wallet here, then frankly, you may not have a pulse. So welcome to 4-Star Classics, and let's go back to the 80s and the 10 best cars that I would buy in a heartbeat. That's right, the 10 best cars from perhaps the greatest decade this planet has ever seen. Thank you for allowing me to entertain you. This week we are going back to the decade of excess, a time of incredible music, questionable fashion, VHS Vs Betamax, Rubix Cubes, Walkmans, Ghostbusters, and ghetto blasters. It was a time of hot hatches, of supercars, of super saloons, tasteless decals, inexplicable special edition, fuel injection, MPVs, and outrageous body kits. In other words, it was the greatest decade that this world has ever seen, and one that gives me an intravenous injection of nostalgia. And in this week's episode, I'm going to take you through the 10 80s cars that I would buy in a heartbeat. And there I go using that word again, because it's probably worth highlighting that the 80s is now 40 years ago. And that means that unlike the 90s cars that I featured in my previous heartbeat list, almost all of the 80s cars that you could buy 15 years ago are now serious money. Which kind of makes a bit of a mockery of the title Buy in a Heartbeat, because in truth, unless you're Elon Musk, very few of the cars could be considered impulse buys. A few of them are less than £20,000, sure, almost, but most are now in the millions. So with that sobering thought, it's on with the show. And the first one on my list is this, the AMG Hammer, perhaps the coolest Mercedes ever made. It was first launched in 1986, and it is a psycho killer version of the 300 CE Coupe. It was based on the W124 chassis, and you could get it in either a 5.6 or monster 6-litre engine, of which only 12 were ever built. And that was a 6-litre V8 quad-cam 32-valve engine. Remember, this was when AMG was independent of Mercedes and not just a badge that you stick on nowadays to show that it's kind of sporty. The mighty Hammer had 375 brake horsepower, over 400 foot-pounds of torque, and it could do 0 to 60 in 5 seconds, which today sounds a bit slow, but back then was epic. It also had a top speed of 199 miles an hour. And there was even an estate or wagon version of which just one was made, and this is what it looks like. Now, while I would love this TVR Griffith 500 to have come in the 80s, that's going to stay on my 90s list, but the next one up in the 80s is the Renault 5 Turbo. Now, the original Turbo was launched in 1980. The Turbo 2 came out in 1983, and that had aluminium doors and roof panels. The cars were powered by a 1.4 litre, but with enormous Garrett turbochargers, which gave you 163 brake horsepower, but the cars only weighed 900 kilograms, which meant a 0 to 60 time of 7 seconds, which was very much hot hatch territory in the 80s and early 90s. For me, it's the quintessential hot hatch with perfect proportions designed by Marcello Gandini at Bertoni. One of the things I most love are the crazy interiors of those cars with their bonkers color combinations, just like this. Later on in the Turbo's life, you got the GT Turbo, which was based on the Gen 2 Renault 5 platform and came in 1986. It was less powerful, but it only weighed 850 kilograms. The Renault 5 Turbo is the one that sets my pulse racing the most. And if I could have one of those early cars with a crazy interior, just like I saw here at Le Mans Classic this year, I'd be a very happy man. Number 3 on my list is the Toyota MR2 Gen 1, the little wedge-shaped rocket ship. I've always loved this shape MR2. I had the MR2 Gen 2, had 2 of those, but I secretly always loved that little nippy Gen 1. I had an Irish friend, Ken, who had one of them, and probably since those days, it's always stuck in my mind. It was launched in 1983, but went on sale in 1984, and it weighs just 977 kilograms, and it's powered by a 1.6 litre inline 4-cylinder engine, which gives you 0 to 60 in 8 seconds and 122 miles an hour top speed. And MR2, incidentally, stands for Midship Runabout 2-seater. I bet you didn't know that. Suspension and handling on the Gen 1 MR2, incidentally, was handled by Roger Becker of Lotus. I love Japanese cars, as many of you who watch my 90s videos will attest, and this one, yeah, that's the one for me. And as I stand next to this immaculate Jeep Cherokee in red with cloth interior, a quirky choice, another quirky choice of mine, the Saab 900 Turbo. Now this is one of my all-time favorite car shapes. It's quirky, it's Swedish, it's classic, and I love those 3-spoke wheels. Technically, the Saab 900 Turbo was launched in 1979, but all the good ones appeared in the 80s. I particularly like the Carlson models, but it's the Turbo S from 1986 with the 185 brake horsepower and 7 seconds 0 to 60 that really gets my juices flowing. But not, of course, the convertible, because of that dreaded scuttle shake when you go around corners. But the ones I really want, though, are the final 150 Ruby editions, all of which are in metallic red. They are impossible to find with low mileage, but you could possibly get a high mileage one now. But those, I think, are the ones to have. And now here's a real serious car for the list, the Lamborghini Countach. Now this is a car I've never owned, but of course it was in the Cannonball Run, so I absolutely love it. I've always therefore wanted one, but I've never kind of taken the plunge, but it does remain one of my all-time favorites. Originally produced in 1974, but synonymous with the 80s, and of course now even more so thanks to The Wolf of Wall Street. Only 2,049 Countaches were actually made over 2 decades. And you'll notice I pronounce it correctly, Countach, not the way Jason says it. Whilst the LP 400 and 400S are admittedly the purer shape, I prefer the more macho LP 5000 Quattro Valvolve with its 5.2 litre V12 naturally aspirated engine. And I have to say, I absolutely hate the 25th anniversary. To me, it's super ugly, despite being designed by Horatio Pagani. Now, I couldn't not have a Ferrari F40 in the list, even though I had one. Announced in 1987 and built to celebrate Ferrari's 40th anniversary, the iconic F40 shape was made from composites for lightness and based on the 288 GTO Evo. It's an outrageous shape, one of the most recognizable in all cars. It's got that classic Lexan plastic rear screen with all the vents in it, and it's powered by a 2.9 litre V8 twin turbocharged engine. It's of course got a manual gearbox because it's an old school Ferrari, and it weighs just 1,100 kilograms, which means 0 to 60 in 4 seconds and a 201 mile an hour top speed. It's the ultimate supercar, it's the ultimate supercar shape, and nothing says 80s more than an F40 and perhaps a white Testarossa. This is a bright yellow Lancia Delta Integrale Evo 2 that has been converted into a full super racing track spec. It's absolutely fantastic, and it's also yellow, which is why the next car on my list is the Ruf Yellowbird. Now, the Ruf or Rough CTR Yellowbird was built from 1987 until the mid-90s by Porsche tuner Ruf in Pfaffenhausen, Germany. Despite being so famous, only 30 were actually made, and it was based on the 964 911 Turbo, but with reworked body kit, styling, and yellow paint, hence the name. CTR, incidentally, comes from Group C Turbo Ruf. This car was made famous by Fascination Nürburgring, where Stefan Rosa, wearing loafers, successfully piloted one around that epic track at full tilt and often completely sideways, as you can see here. The Yellowbird featured an enlarged 3.4 litre flat-six engine, twin turbocharged, and it delivered 463 brake horsepower through a 5-speed manual gearbox and only rear-wheel drive. That meant 0 to 60 in 3.6 seconds in the 80s, and the car weighed only 1,100 kilograms thanks to aluminium and fiberglass body panels. At the time, a Yellowbird would crush a Countach, any Ferrari, and it even kept up with a 959 at 0 to 60 and then overtook it. The Yellowbird was so beloved that Ruf created the CTR Anniversary Yellowbird, and here it is. And unfortunately, I didn't manage to get one. Aha, now we know, Damien, why you are standing next to a Porsche 944 Turbo, and that's because the Turbo S is on my list. Now this is a lot more attainable because it's Porsche's front-engined transaxle rear-wheel drive beauty, but I've never actually owned a 944 personally, and I think the Turbo S is the one I would go for. It was launched in 1982, and then the Turbo came out in January 1985. But I want this, the Turbo S. The body had flared wheel arches, integrated body-coloured bumpers and fog lights and front spoiler, and it had black sills to make it look lower. It was powered by a 2.5 litre inline 4-cylinder engine, had 247 brake horsepower, and thanks to a larger turbo, it could do 0 to 60 in 5.9 seconds and on to a top speed of 162 miles an hour. And in 1989, the standard turbo got the Turbo S engine, so that might be worth a look as well. Now, I actually drove a 944 Cabriolet in 1994, and I always remembered the solidity, predictable, safe handling, and how well built it felt. And of course, it's got pop-up headlights and those pepper pot alloys. And you can pick these up for quite reasonable money. A Turbo S or a Turbo like this in good condition, £20,000 to £30,000. And how could any list about 1980s cars not include this, a Peugeot 205 GTI, perhaps one of the definitive hot hatches of all time. This, along with the Renault 5, to me is the quintessential hot hatch. I always loved the clean shape of these. This is the 1.9, which many people say is the one to have. This happens to be an absolute perfect 205 GTI in incredible condition. It's probably going to be sold by the time you watch this, or others are available. I really like them in white as opposed to many are black, and I just love the retro interior, that sporty interior. To me, it's just one of those classics. And I think any list where you talk about 80s cars, you've got to have one of these in it. I love a good chunky French car. That's why I had that Clio Williams. But this is probably the best I've ever seen. Yes, of course it's on the list. Here is my grail car, the Ferrari 288 GTO, launched in 1984 and based on the 308 and subsequently used for the turbo testbed of the F40. For me, this is the greatest modern era Ferrari. And I've actually been in one. I've experienced the turbo boost and I am obsessed with this car. I love its bulging bodywork to cope with the longitudinal turbo engine and improved performance. And the retro 250 GTO slats on the flanks. I love the way that it's a Ferrari 308, except that it isn't. It weighed just 1,150 kilograms thanks to its fiberglass and Kevlar body panels. It generated 395 brake horsepower from its 2.9 litre twin turbo engine, and that was good enough in 1984 for a 0 to 60 time of 5 seconds. The top speed, well, that was 180 miles an hour. And I also love the fact that Niki Lauda was given one of the 272 made by Enzo Ferrari himself. So there you are, my top 10 80s cars that I would buy in a heartbeat. You may agree, you may disagree. Frankly, I don't much care, but feel free to congratulate or abuse me in the comments and suggest others that I may have forgotten about. Like the 1990s, cars in the 80s are smothered in a lather of pure nostalgia of a bygone age of freedom, excess, and opportunity. This was a time of big hair, big jewellery, and big dreams. And I'm proud to say that I was there. Most of the cars on sale in the 80s were, of course, absolutely terrible. But like fine wines, some vintage examples have aged impeccably and are now increasingly rare and consequently eye-wateringly valuable. There are, of course, many cars that I still covet but didn't make it on the list. And in no particular order, the honourable mentions are as follows. The DeLorean, the Ferrari Testarossa, Honda CRX, Mazda RX-7 Generation 1, Mitsubishi Starion, Lexus LS400, the Porsche 959, VW Golf GTI, Audi Quattro, Nissan Skyline GTR R32, Chevrolet Corvette C4, the Porsche 911 CS, that rare variant, Ford RS200, bonkers homologated rally car, BMW Z1, there's a video of that on our channel, Ford Capri 2.8, Ford Sierra RS Cosworth, and of course, the BMW E30. And I want to thank all of you for suggesting many of those cars and for also telling me what your 80s best cars are. Thank you for watching this episode on the 10 80s cars that I would buy in a heartbeat. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it interesting and entertaining and useful. If you like what we're doing on The Car Guys, please subscribe, leave comments and likes. There'll be another episode next week.